Okay. So, at the end of the day now, another strike looming. But let's first of all look at Mr. Chris Ngige. Kicking against what the National Assembly proposed about seeking greener pasture abroad.
Yes, because we've also talked about it. Economic migration is not something that you can put an end to by way of a decree, by way of a law. It's a global thing. It's not Nigerian doctors alone that are leaving their countries for greener pasture. Doctors from all over the third world are moving out. Look at Egypt. A lot of Nigerians leave our country to receive Medicare in Egypt. But in spite of that, between 2019 and 2022, 11,600 Egyptian doctors left to practice abroad. And that is, this bill that they are talking about was copied from Egypt. Egypt has a law that says you must practice for 3 years in a public health institution before you move, before you can even work in a private,
after graduation,
before you can even work in a private hospital in Egypt, you must first work in a public health serve the government for 3 years, because the cost of training a doctor is high, heavily subsidized by government. So they don't want to see a situation in which, after all the sacrifice, after all the training, the next minute you are gone. But I really don't see what we can do about it. I don't see how we can stop it. And I think that's the point that Ngige was making, that there is no way you can stop a doctor who has graduated from medical college from receiving his license to practice. You cannot stop it, and in any case, it's against the labor laws to try to stop anyone from seeking greener pasture, wherever it is, whether it is from within our country or yes, I know some companies will try to say, you must work for us for so number of years. It's against the labor laws.
Yeah, if you take those companies,
yes, you will lose. There's nothing you can do. All you need to do is provide the best working environment that will discourage or minimize it. If people feel satisfied somewhere, they want to stay there and work. You cannot force people to stay. You can't force people to stay. Even Americans are going to work in China. Some of them have learned to speak Chinese language. Yes. They take lessons in Chinese language so that they can find jobs in China. And that's how it is. Pakistanis, there are more Pakistanis who are doctors in the UK than Nigerians. The Nigerian doctors in the UK. There are more Indian doctors in the UK than Nigerian doctors. So you can imagine an Egyptian doctor who was on $300 per month working in a public health institution in Egypt. And then when he traveled to one of the rich Asian countries, I think UAE or something, his salary was 40 times higher than what he was earning at home. 40 times. So you then ask yourself, who would not want to go and look for greener pasture? Because you are trying to make things better for your family, for yourself.
It's as if it's in our profession that we have this migration in Nigeria. We are losing it.
It's in all. It's in all. No doubt about that. Even journalists are moving out of the country
every day.
And it's one of the issues, like we said on this program before, that the banks had, especially during the cashless, when the cashless policy first came into effect, where internet banking virtually crashed. And like I said here, even some banks are retaining staff who are outside the country to work for them from there, because they can't get the same kind of skill and trust that they need. So I think the this government is already out. So there's little that can be done now.
2 weeks more.
Just 2 weeks. So, 2 things. The incoming government must make the economy better. Because that is the only way that
make home attractive.
You can make Nigeria attractive. The dollar is still well over 700 naira now. And whatever you are earning, we usually benchmark it against the dollar because that's about the currency we spend in Nigeria. So we must make that. We must tackle that issue. And then number 2 is, it is not at every point in time that workers must demand for salary increase. What workers should be doing now, the labor unions, is to insist on whatever they are taking home to have stronger value
for it. Conducive atmosphere.
Because the moment you keep increasing salary,
inflation
will be catching up with it. And there will be very little we can do at the point we begin to get the economy right in terms of bringing down the cost of goods and services. If at every point in time, for instance, the Nigerian Labour Congress and Trade Union Congress, they were saying that if government should remove subsidy from our petroleum products, they are going to demand for 100,000 naira minimum wage. So if you demand for 100,000 naira minimum wage, and eventually the economy gets better, how do you catch up in terms of competing with other currencies? Because we are just making the naira valueless by the day. What we should be doing is to try to get more value for the naira instead of increasing the quantum that we take home. Because at the end of the day, we will now be praying that we don't end up like Zimbabwe, where workers earn in trillions because the currency is finished.
Or Venezuela.
So it's something we must take into consideration, because from what I could see, part of the demands of the doctors was that they demanded an increase somewhere, they demanded for this allowance, they demanded for that allowance. It has not been met. In making all of these demands, we must also be thinking of what the impact will be on the economy. Because if we don't do that, and we are thinking of only the short-term gains, then in the long run, the country will be worse off.
Did 5 weeks, a 5-week warning strike again over failure of government to meet their demand?
5 days.
Yes, it's always the...
I think the 5 weeks.
No, it's 5 days.
Okay.
It's always, they do 5 weeks, that's the whole month already. It's more than a full-blown strike. That's a typo. You know, this is what usually happens, especially if they actually called off the last strike. When you call off the last strike, then you have to inform your employer, notify your employer that another strike is coming. If you didn't call it off, if you merely suspended, it means that you don't owe your employer any notification. You can resume the strike anytime you want. That is the labor law. So, you know, when they fought for hazard allowance the other time, they were being paid hazard allowance that was instituted in the 80s. What value is that money compared to today's realities? It makes no sense. And these were people who sacrificed their lives during the COVID. We lost many doctors in Lagos, in Abuja, many places. So they felt, we are the frontline defenders of the lives of Nigerians during that period. Increase our hazard allowance. They warned, they threatened, they didn't do anything, despite the long warning notice until these people went on strike. Now, I remember some of the issues that they raised then. Some of those issues are still there. Some of those issues are still there unaddressed. What government usually does is, okay, they go and address 1 or 2, If there are 7 demands, they will look at 1 or 2.
And most of the time, the pipe is on, then the call of that strike.
Yes.
ASU strike is still there, and they've not made their demands.
No, they have not made their demands.
That one is still there now. Once the new government
the judgment is coming now. I think they fixed the judgment for, is it 31st or something?
Mm-hmm. There's a way we just do the thing. It looks like a time bomb.
Or 30th.
You know, waiting to explode. The new administration will come, and they will have their hands filled up
With all kinds
doctors,
of
people, because they don't know that. Look,
we have to manage our industrial relations with workers better. This government has had to battle strikes here and there.
So many.
When you also look at the minimum wage law, you know that this government has breached the minimum wage law.
Big time.
The law says after so number of years,
5 years.
you must increase minimum, you must review minimum wage, not necessarily increase, review minimum wage. Jonathan did his own in 2011, and then this government came
In the last one, 2015 was the last time we...
No, it was supposed to be 2016.
Okay.
But we didn't do it. We dragged it. It went on and on for 2 more years. So what that means is that we are supposed to be talking about another minimum one. But nobody is even talking about
States are still struggling to pay the 30,000 naira.
Largely because of the way the negotiation for that one went, how long it lasted. Nobody is even contemplating. I think people, even Labour has given up that this government will not do anything about minimum wage again, because the way that one lasted, and in spite of that, some states did not even pay the last one.
It's as if, look, the lasting solution is not to just throw up this increase, you know, because at the end of the day, this will lead to inflation. The atmosphere, as you said.
Inflation will be there. Then
you see the people everywhere. There are ways of managing inflationary trends. It's just the management of our economy and our fiscal policies that has not been good enough. Everywhere, workers seek better welfare. They are not going to be thinking, if we ask for static. Yes, supposed to be static. Everywhere, look at France, even countries that people are doing well, they will still ask for more. So they are not going to be thinking, if we ask for it, it will market women will, as a result of that, increase their own. No, that's not their business. Honor your obligation to workers. Where you promise...
This paid is $12 per hour.
Yes, and states have different minimum wage, depending on the standard of living in each state. Now, if you promise workers something, go ahead, fulfill your promise. People want to be respected, they honor their obligations. When you don't honor your obligation, they will come back to fight you again. So, and you cannot say people will ask for better welfare. If, for example, we are at TVC here, I've been working for 12 years, you don't increase my pay in any way, I'll be thinking of going elsewhere. That's the way it is.
Yes, but at the same time, if we also have a government that is responsive, like we have said, if, for instance, you are supposed to increase salary in another 5 years, and you know it, and there are things you put in place, for instance, that can crash the cost of transportation, it will also appeal to the workers. They will see something in it. But how much of that have we developed? That's where the challenge is. We are not doing things that can even, ensure that people spend less on daily basis. Food cost is going up
massively
every day. If
inflation has been going,
if today,
since last year, every month it's going.
If, like the government said, and it comes into reality, a bag of rice that is 30,000 naira today goes down to 10,000 naira. By the time you are looking at your money, you feel better.
That one cannot.
Exactly. That's how the challenge is.
There's still much ado about the battle